I want a reputation. I want a name. I want to be reliable. I want to just be as busy as I can get. And you got to be careful what you wish for.
What's one thing that you think that you've learned that maybe today there's a line you're not going to cross and this is the way the ship's sailing?
Kind of like in City Slickers, like the secret to life is that one thing.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out yourself. Take the time for your kids. Your practice will be here Monday. Get some real estate for your office if you can, and build some solid roots.
Yeah.
As you say, fail forward.
Fail forward. Mike has been around the block and he's got a thriving practice. He's at a new location. He's got some partners, and like these videos, what we try to do is articulate your journey.
Being a physician, especially in cardiology, where we see a lot of acute care, and unfortunately we see a fair amount of death. If you go away, there's 67 other cardiologists in town. Your legacy is really how you impacted the people really important to your life. To be transparent with my patients, it's like, all right, we're going to start to do vein stuff. And then they're like, well, have you ever done this? It's like,
it's good to see you, Mike.
what's up, Victor?
Oh, making it around the country and having these interesting conversations with MDs of all different types of specialties. So thanks, guys, for joining us for another one of these short films. I'm here with my buddy, Dr. Mike Metzger, and he is a cardiologist down here in South Florida. We met maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Something like that.
Mike has been around the block and he's got a thriving practice. He's at a new location. He's got some partners. And, like these videos, what we try to do is articulate your journey, right? There's wins, there's losses. And as we say, we fail forward.
Right.
And we take from these kind of experiences. And if we're talking to, folks who are coming up in the industry who, may want to see how you get to a certain point and how do you remain even keel throughout this experience. That's the point of these films. So thank you for sitting down.
No problem. My pleasure. Thanks for reaching out to me, and happy to reconnect.
If you could kind of look at your career and say, all right, well, this is it. We're young bucks, but not really.
Right. Not anymore.
And so at this point, you have a perception of how things should happen according to you, your partners, and everybody around you. But then there's perspective. And what would you say your perspective is into having a practice, a thriving cardiology practice, and arguably one of the biggest markets in the U.S.?
It's an interesting question. I think the answer changes as our age changes. I just turned 50 this year, so I've been in practice 17 years now since training. And at the beginning, I think you're trying to establish yourself in town in whatever community you're in and be as busy as you can be, especially as an interventional cardiologist. There's something symbolic about doing a lot of cases and procedures and being perceived as a reliable go-to person from a procedure standpoint. Economic and practice stability is really anchored in your practice. You got to have a busy office practice to generate all the work and all the hospital work. In those early years of late 30s, early 40s, you're just grinding to establish yourself. It's all about establishing your name. I want a reputation. I want a name. I want to be reliable. I want to just be as busy as I can get. And you got to be careful what you wish for, because then you get it, and then all of a sudden you could very easily just get stuck on this carousel that you can't get off.
Yeah.
Because you're beholden to satisfy people, whether it's your patients, needy patients, referring doctors. And in a community like ours where there's a lot of doctors in town, there's an adage in business. It's like, if you don't take care of your customers, someone else will. So you're beholden to everybody, the hospital, your employees, the referring doctors, the patients. And then outside of work, your family, your kids, your partners. By the 10-year mark of practice, I think you're like, okay, you can take a couple breaths. I built myself a little bit. You realize where the rest of your life is going. Then you say, okay, now it's time to make some choices. Let me try to regain some of my personal time and what's needed to keep my focus and productivity there without fully selling out my life to the practice, and be there for your kids and whatever other outside interests you have. And then the focus on the balance regains itself. I think everybody starts out in their career and practice, I want to be balanced, but you get very easy to get sucked into selling out everything to build your practice. I think if you want to be successful, you have to in any business. And then you establish it. And then I think it's a struggle to find your balance and maintain your happiness and still finding a way to be productive. And I think our evolution and my personal evolution and the evolution of our group has really mirrored that. As you know, all of us are roughly the same age, and close to the same stages in family life and parenting, and we've found ways to work smarter and not harder. Having a very successful, experienced business administrator as a CEO, taking care of our operational stuff, having nurse practitioners work with us that can really do a lot of great hospital work and office work that can free us up to do a lot of things, outside of the COVID stress. I would say the last 5 years, we keep getting busier and busier. Thank God. It's a good problem to have. The phone's always ringing and plenty of new people come, but I've had more time than ever for myself, my family, and outside interests to keep that balance. It's all about that balance.
Because you build an identity, and you guys go through this process of school and residency and everything that comes along with it. As an entrepreneur, and I see with, my business where I started seeing patterns, and these types of patterns that weren't necessarily making me the best father, the best husband, the best friend, and having a point in life to be able to reflect and redefine what success means, and I think if we kind of look back and say, I think it's been 17 years since you've been at this, and you've got your contracts with the hospital, you got a thriving practice, and you have partners. How do you remain when you say that? You use that word balance, right? And that's a tricky word because balance could mean so many different things. What's one thing that you think that you've learned that maybe today there's a line you're not going to cross and this is the way the ship's sailing?
I mean, I think that one thing is kind of like in City Slickers, like the secret to life is that one thing. You got to figure it out yourself. Whatever it is creating that boundary for yourself. This is what's most important to me. I'm going to make it to all the lacrosse games. I'm going to coach the team. I'm going to take a trip with my partner. There's things that just have to be done, and you realize nothing's going to go away. Like the practice will still be here.
Well, patient care is still patient care.
Well, you have coverage. And then 15 years ago, I was of the mentality where I can't not be here for a 4-day weekend. They'll stop calling me. But you realize that doesn't happen. Your patient base is strong and loyal. It was that realization, life will go on. You can do what you need to do for your time. You can take a week off. It took me a long time to realize I can take a week vacation and have a whole week off. And it felt really hard at first. And then you're back on that Monday morning, and within 5 minutes, it feels like you never left. So everything's there when you get back. And if you have the resources to support you between technology to still check in on stuff remotely, reliable partners, nurse practitioners, that's the one thing is things will be here when you get back, and you have to take the time to protect yourself. Being a physician, especially in cardiology, where we see a lot of acute care, and unfortunately we see a fair amount of death. Unfortunately, we've seen stuff happen to physicians in town, younger physicians in town have medical illnesses and deaths, personal tragedy in my family where a younger cousin died suddenly. That helps shape perspective and be like, you know what? If you go away, there's 67 other cardiologists in town, and your legacy isn't your cardiology care. People might remember you as a good doctor, but it's not your legacy. Your legacy is really how you impacted the people really important to your life. Your friends and family going to remember you as. And once I started to grasp those concepts, that balance became easier to achieve.
If we look at the past versus the present and look at the specialty of cardiologists, and you're an interventional cardiologist, so there's been a lot of innovation, in that field itself, that specialty. How do you keep up with that? Because what are the toys that you have in this practice, and how do you deploy patient care using these new innovations?
Starting out when I first came to town, I was strictly doing cardiology and interventional cardiology work. And in the back of my mind, I was trained in vascular work and vascular interventions, but I wanted to branch out into the venous world. I was initially with a group, and then I left the group and started my own practice. And I knew, this is my opportunity. I want to get into the vein world. So that's actually how I met you. I ended up taking myself to a conference, taking time off of work, and I went to a vein conference with Dr. Almeida at IBC. And then through that, I met you. I met Julian Javier and Almeida. And then being in South Florida, I was able to go to Almeida and watch some vein work, commit to reading and watching videos and learning and talking to people. And then there was a workshop in the Dominican Republic that I went down to. And so just as an example of the biggest innovation, it's okay, I'm going to start doing veins in my practice, but being someone of moral, ethical fiber to be transparent with my patients, it's all right, we're going to start to do vein stuff. And then they're like, well, have you ever done this? It's patients don't really ask that, but to present the package, like, look, I'm an interventional cardiologist. We use catheters. This is a very natural extension of what we do. And it became very easy. The map of it was stepwise, go to a conference, educate myself, talk to people who do it, find an opportunity to go to a workshop where you can actually get your hands on and do it. We started branching out, I think in 2012 or 13 to start to do acute treatments for pulmonary embolus. So it was another frontier of procedures that quote unquote we haven't done yet. But no one really has, because the technology was new with ECOS for doing interventional strategies for acute DVTs and PEs. So it's the same thing. It's going to conferences, looking at stuff online, embracing members of industry. Some of these medical device reps have infinite more procedural experience than we do, because all they do is hop around town and they see 10 or 15 cases a day. And it might be something that we might just do once or twice a week or so. Choosing your industry partners well, taking what they can offer you with their resources, going to their workshops, conferences, also through the fortune of meeting, Dr. Javier, talking about doing like radial artery catheterizations. I was well trained in that in my practice. I hadn't started doing it. Upon talking to him what I was about to do and start my own practice, he's like, can you do radial caths? I'm like, yeah, I was very well trained in it. He's like, be the first guy at your hospital doing radial caths. Like, create a niche for yourself that can identify you to be different than the 67 other cardiologists. And that resonated with me well. So between veins, radial caths, interventional DVT and PE work, you start to carve out a niche of specialty and uniqueness that I think has been helpful. And then as the years rolled on to advance the technology with the practice and the growth of the practice, I think the biggest breakthroughs we had, as I referenced, was having, a real business person come in and help take over our operational stuff. And that's evolved into, now we have 4 doctors and 4 nurse practitioners. We just moved into this new facility about 6 weeks ago, which was probably about a 2-year project of a major renovation of 12,000 square feet that none of us would ever had the knowledge or the time or dedication to do from a business standpoint. And our CEO is just committed to the project for us. To your point of your question of innovation that we're rolling out here in this resources, we actually have a PET scanner now, and we're able to implement great technology of doing nuclear PET stress tests for cardiac ischemic risk assessments, the latest and greatest for non-invasive cardiac imaging. And it's just a great service. It's a much quicker protocol from a patient standpoint, lower doses of radiation, and much importantly, much more precise results, lower rates of false positives and false negatives, leading to fewer relatively unnecessary cardiac caths. But it was a big deal, a very expensive and logistically challenging undertaking to get a machine up in the new construction and to launch it. And, all of us doctors, we all believed in it. Lyle, our CEO, made it happen. And now, here we are 6 weeks into it. We're doing them. My solo practice running around and not taking a day off in 4 years, whatever, evolved to, 12,000 square feet, 8 practitioners and a PET scanner.
Let me give you a scary question. And I'm tapping into the entrepreneur mind of yours. So now you're here.
Right.
What's desired state look like from here?
From here, the real vision, our CEO has his own personal professional experience where he's been involved in integration of other smaller practices in the GI world of consolidating smaller groups into a larger group to make a bigger corporation to leverage themselves with insurance providers, other office expenditures to, higher revenues, lower expenses from a business standpoint, and then they made themselves a sizable target for, some type of a commercialized PE venture to hopefully get some remuneration for the hard work. So that's the vision of what we're doing now. And we actually are in talks with several other solo cardiologists from around town, because now we have this facility, we have the CEO, we have like the only PET scanner in town, and it's a desirable thing. So that's what's on our radar probably for the next 5 to 7 years. The days of someone giving you money at the end of your practice is over, because patients aren't an asset; they'll scatter. So if there's a way to get some financial reward for all your work. The era now is getting it before you retire and then giving a few years back to working for that venture.
I'll summarize it with this, man, and listening, because you've had smart growth. The people that you've surrounded yourself with have a lot to do with this. And I don't know, look back at it and what's something you wouldn't do, or, maybe possibly I wouldn't have changed this. I got it right, and I want you to own that.
I think I wish I had this professional, personal balance sooner in my life. I didn't have the trust in the stability of the practice and myself.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have had it sooner, because I think I wasn't present for some of the good early years of my kids. I'm very present now.
Yeah.
But in their early years, I wish I was around more for that, which I'm realizing now as my oldest is about to go to college.
Yeah.
It really took a good 3 or 4 years before I was comfortable taking more than a weekend off. So it was that much dedication to just grinding it out and feeling like I had to be hands-on and doing it all myself. I think I also regret not being more confident in trying to get buying an office or doing something from a developmental stage early on. Obviously, real estate prices always go up and up and up. Looking back, it's like, shoot, I should have gotten something big years ago. Just from a personal finance standpoint, obviously, it would have been a smart investment. But when you're growing your business, it's hard to believe that you'll be successful enough to really pull it off.
It's like this mindset thing, because you've got guys who are coming up and they're looking at it, guys or gals, and they're coming up and they're maybe watching this video and trying to, decide.
Yeah, what I say to the 15 years ago, Mike Metzger, it's take the time for your kids. Your practice will be here Monday. Get some real estate for your office if you can, and build some solid roots.
Yeah.
As you say, fail forward.
Fail forward. Right.
But those are just great lessons. What we got right was the growth of having four like-minded partners, 4 including myself. We're all about the same age. We all have similar outlooks on patient care and values, which are important. Taking the investment to hire an appropriate business person to look after your business. I think that was the number one thing of our last 5 to 7 years of growth, was having 2 different CEOs, but for the first time of really having a business mind running our business. It's unfortunately too many doctors, myself included, we just don't know. We like to think we know a lot because we're educated, but we're not business people.
Yep.
And you have to trust business people to do business operations, and that's been a huge thing for us. Realizing, giving ourselves some less stress and more personal freedoms, knowing these things are looked after. It is an investment. Obviously, you're paying someone to do that work on a CEO level scale, but he's achieved a lot for us that's working out economically for everyone.
All of us who are going through life, right? This thing about when does self-awareness really kick in and when can you reflect? Yeah. So when you have those moments and aha moments in life, you start making smarter decisions. Yeah. But that comes with walking the earth the years.
Yeah, that's nothing you'll take from a lecture. Fortunately, life is full of hard knocks, and I don't think we can be as refined or successful without having endured these hard knocks to fail forward. And you have to learn from them, learn from the lessons. You have to look back and say, what could I have done differently? And it's the hard knocks, the hard personal and professional knocks, bad outcomes from patients. What can I do differently? Different adventures with employees. What can we do differently? Life is interesting.
You got to risk.
You got to be awake and pay attention to the lessons.
That's it. With that, I want to thank you for sitting down with us and,
no problem.
Sharing this information. I think it's valuable, when you sit with another human being that, goes through it, the wins and the losses, and it's good to see you're in a happy place. And
everything's great.
Congratulations. You're engaged now.
Getting married to Wendy. Everything's great.
Everything's beautiful. So again, thank you.
Thanks, Victor. It was great to see you again.
It's great to see you.
You got it.
All right, guys. So that's another film, and I hope you enjoyed it and you can take some nuggets from that. And as I head west, we'll circle back with more of these interviews. So stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next one.